again, thank you for being here. Um, I would like to hear a little bit of feedback too, because what I didn't think about at the time when we scheduled this time is we are going, like, we're teaching until 1, and so maybe like we're on camera until 1, you got that half an hour lunch, I get right back. So I don't know if that timetable is a little bit too tight. If any feedback would be great about that too, of what works best. So anyway, we're our first session. We wanted originally to do some stuff over the summer. Didn't quite work. A big part of the summer, of course, was creating curriculum to prepare for distance learning for this school year, and so there was unexpected additional time that was needed to prepare that Canvas stuff, especially. And so we're maybe starting a little bit slower than we would have wanted to, but at the same time, everybody here has experience with grading reform. So, I think it might be a little bit tougher, I'm guessing, for Cohort 2. It's going to be our first meeting tomorrow with them, and we'll see how that goes. But so anyways, that's why we're starting now. And Mindy sent out an email a couple weeks ago asking for feedback when you guys would rather have our first meeting. And majority of people said a little bit later rather than sooner, and which makes sense because things have been kind of overwhelming. Maybe that's an understatement.
I just want to say hi to everybody. I'm running tutoring at the same time right now. It's good to see everyone. Josh, is your chat disabled?
If it is, it's on accident. Is it not working?
I was just going to say hi to everybody via chat, and I could only text you. So
yeah.
Oh.
It's okay. I mean, I'm sure you guys are fine. No worries.
It's probably left over from your settings in class where you have no doubt, or at least I have set it to where they only get to talk to me.
I think that's it. But I have allowed participants to chat. Don't know why that's working like that. All right. Sorry. I'm going to have to
Don't worry about it,
next
Josh.
time. Okay. There are a couple links I wanted to put into the chat. And let me start right now. I'm going to real quick minimize this. I'm going to put the presentation into the chat right now. So, okay, I just put the presentation into the chat. There's some links in there too. So if you'd like to open that to follow along, it's also in our shared folder, our shared drive, which it may have been a while since you've looked at that. So I'll show you a little bit later. I'll give a reminder if you need that at all. All right, so anyway, here's our agenda for today. I made a couple of modifications from the previous email, but I thought, so we'll start with some introductions or reintroductions in a minute. And like to just review over our purpose, goals, tenets, and commitments, because it's been a while. And I think especially, I feel at least when we get in the thick of things and, we're like really focusing on maybe the trees versus the forest, and just to remind ourselves about some of those key important grading practices to keep in mind in case we lose sight of those. I'd like to do a little bit of reflection on last year's work, because we didn't really get a chance to do that just because of how we finished the year and, so on and so forth. Have a little bit of discussion of making grades matter. And I asked if everybody could read at least I think this starts with an epilogue, or a prologue rather, and then chapter 1, and then an overview of the action research work for this year. So that's kind of what I think our time will look like here. Let me go ahead. I'm gonna get rid of the screen share so we can see each other better. So we do a little reintroductions, just share our name, school you're from, just to remind everybody, the classes that you're teaching this year, whether they're the same or different, and then what's on your mind right now about grading. So I'll start real quick. So I'm Josh, and I'm at Highland. This year I'm teaching again AP English language, and it's been I don't know, maybe 8 or so years now I've taught AP Lang, and this is my first year teaching ELD. So I'm teaching ELD 3 and 4, and I feel like finally I'm teaching. I wish I would have taught this for a long time, and so obviously it has the challenges that go along with it, but I'm really enjoying it. And something that's on my mind right now, I have a lot of things on my mind about grading, but one thing in particular is how can I implement these good practices that I think I've been doing with CP and AP and ELD. And because I know I want to make sure that their grades are just as equitable as my other classes. And I don't want, like, I really get concerned when I hear sometimes, like, I'll hear a teacher say, like, oh yeah, that works in AP, but will it work in, whatever class? Well, if we want it to be equitable, we need to make sure it does. Right? So that's a little bit about me. Mindy, are you in the middle?
I'm here.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Montano. For those of you, I think I know everybody in here. Welcome back. I hope you get a lot out of this discussion today. And as Josh presents the book, if you guys have any questions or issues with anything, just let me know. Wednesdays are my tutoring days for Avid, so I have to run the rooms in there today. So enjoy.
Oh, and Mindy, just one last thing.
Oh,
Is there anything in particular that's on your mind right now for grading?
I wish that I had a class that I could teach so I could see what everybody sees in Speed Grader and Gradebook and Synergy. It seems like a lot right now, and my heart is out there with you, even though I'm not in the classroom. I'm really trying to see what you guys see on a daily basis. It's just hard, and thank you for being here and giving up your time today for this.
Thanks. Laura?
Hi, Laura Huntington from Ridgeview. I'm teaching AP Calculus and Math Analysis. My biggest concern, I think, is just being able to ask the types of questions I need to ask to be able to do standards-based grading. Math has its own set of difficulties along with science in that it's very difficult to do the notation and the handwriting and have students do meaningful questions. Everyone's pushing us towards doing multiple choice or fill in the blank or connect, just matching things. And it's very difficult to ask a high DOK question with those types of questions. So just trying to figure out how it's all going to work right now.
Right. Thanks, Laura. Daisy?
I'm Daisy. I'm at Arvin, and I'm teaching AP language and access. I actually forgot what I was teaching there for a second. It's been a day, so I don't think I can't, I don't know what I don't know yet.
Thanks, Daisy. Roseanne?
Hi, my name is Roseanne. I go by Rose, though. I teach at Arvin High. I am teaching English, English 11 and GATE for 10th graders. And I guess a concern of mine or something that I've been having to figure out right now in terms of my grading is how to, because online learning is so different and it has different nature. And so how do I keep my tenets and I follow kind of with my morals, but also adjust so that it works with online teaching?
Right. Thanks. Tanya?
Hello, I'm Tanya. I'm at Liberty. This year I'm teaching foundations again. And I also have 3 geometry classes this year, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm actually really excited about Canvas grading little system. And I know that sounds crazy, but I just spent 6 hours yesterday finally catching up on figuring it out. And I think one of the coolest things about it is in the student view, when they go to the assignment, it tells them the points possible, what they earned, but they also can see your comments and they can click the little link and it brings them right to the assignment if they want to resubmit. And that makes it so much easier to manage resubmittals. I don't know if that's a word, sorry. Because I know last year, I really struggled with, I wanted the kids to resubmit, but this allows them, it's right there. It's almost impossible for them to ignore that they got a 1 out of 4 and my comments are staring at them and the link's right there. It's almost forces them to resubmit. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Right. Thanks. Casey?
I'm Casey. I'm at Arvin. I have all 11 this year. My thoughts are, how do I communicate this to my students I did like the whole class presentation like I did last year. Tell it wasn't resonating the same way. So my questions are, how do I make that clear to them from a distance without having to have 181 individual, my life, individual conversations? Sophie, will you close the door for me, please? Will you close the office door for me, please? Thank you. We're also doing third grade at home. And my other question was, we've had some change in our PLC and department. So our team this year is a combination of folks who have done the grading cohort and folks who haven't. So moving forward, how do we welcome in our new members and get them started? But then for those of us, this is our second year, continue to grow and not kind of have to do the first year over again.
Thanks. Katie?
Hi guys, I think I recognize most of you. I'm Katie. I'm also at Highland in the English 11 team. I teach a couple sections of AP Lang as well. And as far as grading goes, I'm just more on the logistical side, needing to really have some more time to play with the setup and figure out how I'm going to have these principles translate in Synergy and or Canvas. Just needing more time with that, and kind of some logistical things like how to get like rubrics into there so that it's communicating the learning a little bit more. Just want to do a better job with that this year, but overall I feel really, really good about our agreements and the progression of our reforms and how they apply in distance learning.
Great, thanks. And Eve?
Hi, I'm Eve Childress. I teach at Highland as well. I'm teaching AP English Language and Composition as well as English 11. And I don't know, I have so many things in my mind right now, I can hardly think straight, but I think that the most demanding for me right now really has to do with rubrics. Getting familiar with the rubrics that have been provided by the district, making sure that I've got good rubrics to use for the AP content that I'm teaching, and then finding successful ways to actually share those with the students, get them familiar with it, and then attach it to their assignments where I want to provide feedback. And I just have tons of questions there. So, yeah.
Thanks. Yvette?
You're welcome.
Okay, had to find my unmute. Sorry. I'm Yvette Heasley. I'm at KernLearn this year. I was at Arvin last year and part of that PLC, and I still feel connected to that PLC. But I am I'm going full force with our grading reforms that we started last year. I actually found a way to put beginning, developing, proficient, exceeds, and NA in the Canvas grade book. It still has to be attached to points, so there's like a percentage that the kids get, but whenever they send me a message about their grade, I say, stop looking at the percentage. I'm not looking at the percentage. Just keep track of your progress. And the kids are embracing it. I made a quick little video using a grading slideshow about kind of what our purpose was, and I posted that in Canvas for them to, in the resources for Canvas for them to use. And it's been pretty positive so far. So, and I agree, I can't remember, a couple people back who made the statement that the resubmission is easier on Canvas. My students, I'm giving them feedback, and I just put it in a little note that says resubmit, and on our weekly assignments on Friday, I say use this day to do redos or resubmits. And I have lots of students so far who are actually resubmitting assignments to and responding to feedback.
Great, thanks. Matt, I think Matt might be at the doctor's right now, so I won't.
I'm actually driving there right now, but I can introduce myself.
Sure, as long as
I'm Matt Prosser. Yeah, I'm Matt Prosser. I am at Highland this year. I was at Arvin last year, so I recognize almost everybody in here, so that's cool. Hi, Arvin people. I miss you guys. My question is about progress reports, kind of what we're going to be doing with that. Since, you know, right now it just says NA, and that's kind of the same question I've had students ask me a couple of times already. So that's my question at this point.
Great, thanks. And last but not least, Alyssa.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I'm late. For some reason I was thinking cohort 2 was cohort year 2. So I thought our meeting wasn't until tomorrow. So sorry I'm late, but I've already gone ahead and started implementing grading reform in my class for this year. On Canvas, I'm doing the strictly feedback, strictly, you know, complete, incomplete, and I provide students comments there to help them out. I'm also using Google Classroom as more of like a file manager, and I encourage my students to use Google Classroom so I can help give them feedback as they're working through the process of whatever we're working on. And so I'll use the comment features there and directly engage with them with that. I've already put in my first assessment into the gradebook. I did start a little early this year with implementing the curriculum. And for my freshman classes, I evaluated their work and assessed their ability to annotate. And so I'm using the 4-point scale with that in the Synergy gradebook. And with my juniors, I already did an assessment assessing them on how they can identify claims and arguments. And that's going well. At the beginning of the year, as I was going through the course expectations, I spent a lot of time explaining to them my grading process. And then I've also made it a regular thing to discuss it in class as we go ahead throughout the year. One of my main goals for this year is I want students to be more in charge of monitoring their progress. And so I'm looking into developing charts for them to fill out on their own where they can, you know, assess themselves. But I'm not there yet. We're getting there, but I'm not. Am I missing anything? I work at Arvin, 9th and 11th English.
Great, thanks. It's good. I feel like I haven't had much of a chance to talk too much. A little bit learned to, but too much about grading. So it's just good to hear where people are at right now, and just kind of what's going on in your situation. I don't know. It helps me kind of feel a little bit better just to talk about it a little bit. So thank you for sharing out. I appreciate it. I'm going to go back to screen share. So I'd like to do just a little bit of a reminder about some of those key tenets and stuff like that, just to keep them fresh in all of our minds. I'd like to do this for myself on a somewhat regular basis, just to make sure that I have it at the front of my mind instead of kind of at the back. So I'm not just like looking for answers to gradebook, and not only looking for answers about how to do something in the gradebook, to make sure though that it's you know, tied to important principles and stuff like that. So I'm going to go back to the share here, and I did put that presentation. I think everybody should have access to that again. And so the purpose of our work, purpose of our work that we kind of established from last year is to improve teacher grading reporting practices, right? In order to, it's all about increasing the accuracy of communication and the equity. So about accuracy and equity. Now, there's kind of some crossover there, like, and according to Joe Feldman's definition of equity, actually accuracy is a component of equity. But I think grading experts, they kind of define it, they all define it slightly differently. But anyway, we want to increase our accuracy and equity of grading. That's why we're doing the work that we're doing. And just a reminder, here are some of our goals for this work. So like when Mindy and I plan for this and all the things that we do, we want to make sure that we are aligning to these things. So to improve the accuracy and clarity of grading and reporting practices. So that's one thing that we talked about last year, in fact, was I think lots of teams talked about really increasing that clarity too, whether it's to students, other teachers, counselors, administrators, parents. Increasing equity in grading reporting practices, providing a supportive community of teachers to implement the reforms. And again, I think really this year especially, right, where we have lots of new things. In some ways, we're all first-year new teachers. You know, as far as at least distance learning goes, or this form of distance learning, this iteration of distance learning. So to provide that supportive community. And also because we know I know I feel good that doing this in learning team and with other teachers, because you have that support if somebody wants to, call you out. Well, we have reasons that we're doing this, right? It's based off of, number one, it's based off of literature, right? It's based off of these best practices of, we're all professionals here. We've made these decisions not in a hodgepodge manner, but collectively. So I think hopefully that gives everybody support. I know I feel better at those decisions because of that decision-making process. To help others to understand our practices, right? These other parts of the school community, and to bring other teachers in. So for example, Casey was talking about how she has this mixed team now, and hopefully we can bring kind of organically some of those people in. We're glad to have Matt Prosser in our team this year and bringing him in, and hopefully get some more to kind of join the movement. Because the bottom line is there are some districts who go about it, like we're starting to read in Making Grades Matter, right? In Solon schools, Matt Townsley and Nathan Weir School, this was top down, and there are some pros and cons of that, but we're kind of bottom up. And so we want to bring others on board. And then also the key tenets that we want to stick to is that, and it always comes back to this, I think. So pretty much anytime that I get into maybe a disagreement, I'll say with grading with somebody, it comes back to we're not starting with the same premises. And what I mean by that is maybe some other teachers who use more traditional practices, or maybe administrators. So I think it always is important to start with this as a baseline. And if we don't agree on it, then it's like, all right, well, we need to go back to these premises and talk about those. So the first that we have is that the number one purpose of grades is to communicate student academic achievement of established learning expectations. And, primarily, of course, being in a PLC and in our district, that's the standards. Or, as we've made those into learning targets and things like that. Number two is the primary audience is for students and parents. And primary audience is not for colleges. That's a secondary or maybe tertiary. Primary is not for counselors. Again, maybe secondary, tertiary, whatever. But we're mostly concerned students and parents. And then lastly, teachers, admin, schools have a responsibility to ensure equitable grading practices. And obviously everybody doesn't agree with that last one, because you would think if they did, then more people would be doing the work that we're doing, right? Or like some people like to call it God's work, right? Maybe that's just me, but so those are some key tenets. And then the collective commitments is that we're reading this book. Hopefully everybody does have this book and got a chance to start at least. And we're going to commit with a team of teachers as much as possible, because we're in the PLC process, that collective decision making. We're going to implement and study at least one reform grading practices. This is slightly changed from last year, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we want to be open to sharing gradebook and grading policies, practices, and concerns. And traditionally, sharing of the gradebook, right? That is, that's a tough thing traditionally, but everybody was great last year about being open about it. And but I think it's really important as we continue in our work together that we collect and share evidence of the practices that we implement. And we're attending these sessions. Right? So those were just a review of some of those things. Did anybody have any kind of any questions or anything like that came to your mind as I was just going through those reviews? I know there are probably things that you are well aware of by now, but like I said, at minimum, I think it's good to refresh it. Any thoughts or questions, concerns that come from those things? All right, well, definitely let me know if anything does come to your mind. So I think we'll get to our first breakout session, actually our only one, I think, because of just kind of how the time is broken up. And if you got here a little bit later, one thing I was saying at the very beginning was, instead of having longer blocks of time and meeting not so regularly, our plan is this year to meet about an hour at a time, but meet about once a month. And so because things change so rapidly in distance learning, hopefully that will be even more effective and give more support and stuff like that. So what I'm going to ask everybody, I'm going to kind of just randomly put people into breakout rooms in a couple of minutes. Thought about doing by team, but I think it's good to mix it up just a little bit. So do that. Oh, sorry, we had Trina was in the waiting room and I didn't see that. Like I do that too often in my classes when I'm on a roll, which is not a good thing sometimes. All right, in breakout rooms, I'm gonna kind of combine these things if we can. I'm gonna go back to the agenda real quick. So when we get to breakout rooms, I think we'll take maybe about 10 to 12 minutes or so. If you guys could start by sharing reflections about last year's work. So what were those practices and policies that were effective, that were especially effective, I guess, especially if you did a lot of them? And then what were some areas of growth too? Hopefully you had a chance to talk about this or to think about this already, but if not, I think now is a good time to do that. And then secondly, if we can get right into discussion about making grades matter. Okay, so I'm going to share right now, hopefully you can see on my screen, there's a document and it should be shared with everybody. I'm gonna put this in the chat. I'm gonna put a link to this in the chat. And instead of making separate copies, I thought if we can have at least one person, just put it in the chat right now, at least one person from each group be the recorder. And whichever room you're in, if you can just kind of take notes for your group, and then we'll share out all together afterwards. And whatever we don't have, I'll put this link in our shared drive too. Okay, so again, if we can start with the reflections on last year's work, and then also after that, so maybe like 5-6 minutes or something like that, and then make sure that we get in some initial talk about making grades matter. And those are the 3 questions I had for you in the reading guide, and which was just for the prologue in chapter 1, just kind of the beginning. Okay, so we're going a little bit quickly here. I feel like the time is going fast. So any questions, let me know. Anything before I get people into breakout rooms? Okay, so we should be good. All right, I'm going to put you, like I said, randomly into groups, and then we can start with sharing out those past practices.
It made it, I think that was, I actually enjoyed reading finals and reading that final thing, which like never happens. Like you hate the final. And so it was like, and even the kids felt that way, like the stress of it and that negative energy that can surround finals was gone. And they actually like enjoyed coming in the last day because on the other end of that was a Christmas movie and a candy cane. But yeah, for like that first 45 minutes, they were like diligently working, and it just like it changed the whole spirit of the class. And so I don't know how I'm going to do that again this year, but that was definitely a change I'll keep. I felt like that was really successful.
That's really cool. I've been waiting to hear how that worked for you because every time you've been talking about it, and it sounded like such an interesting process. If you want to look in the document, I tried to take some notes about what you were saying, but you might want to make it a little bit clearer.
Sure.
If I wasn't true to it.
Other to use like formative assessments and like identifying skills as a PLC, sort of like we did with Arvin, where we were like, what are the focus skills? So they talk about making sure that the PLCs are all on the same page with that concept. So that's a quick little summary. Like I said, if for a chapter to miss, that's probably the one you want to miss, simply because it's kind of a review chapter of stuff you already know.
Okay.
But I think our question was reflections on, right? Isn't our question in the document? Hold on, I got to get it open here. Reflections on last year's grading reform work, successes and challenges. So you and I kind of shared those, right? Like successes for me were that students totally
says the skill, or what do you have in there?
Well, I'm doing it differently than last year. So last year I had them set up by different categories, but now for the assignment, I'm naming the skill in the assignment name. Mm-hmm. And in the description, I'm saying by assessing, this assignment, and this assignment, I've determined that the student received this score. And so if the parent or if the student are confused about, why their score is that score, they can go back into Canvas. They can look at that document, they can look at my feedback and get a better idea of how they can raise that grade up if they want to do a redo. And so with my freshmen, our first skill was on annotating. And so for the freshmen, I had 3 assignments that I looked at that they had to show me that they could annotate. And for my juniors, I had 2 assignments where they needed to show me their ability to use claim, evidence, and reasoning. And that's how I showed them that. And so I just put that in my grade book yesterday, and I already got one concerned parent email, and I was able to, send her a PDF of my grading reform policy. I was able to talk to her about it, and she seemed really pleased with it. She was like, "Oh, thank you for telling me."
Nice.
I'll make sure that she goes back and does those assignments that she's missing. And I'm very vague with
Canvas last year.
Well, no, but in Synergy and then adding.
Oh, Synergy. Okay, yeah.
I mean, I got something that worked, but it's not pretty. And I don't remember what I did now. Because one of my teachers was trying to do that this year, and she's like, "It's still not working. What did you do?" I'm like, "I don't know. I should have written it down."
Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody else here? I just saw another.
Oh, Josh.
Okay.
Real quick.
Okay. So I'm like, I have my document up.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I leave my video off. I feel like it's less intrusive if they're like, for my students, if they're really going at it, right? Like, oh, somebody else is here. That's why I left it off.
Okay. Yeah. And then moving on to this year, right? Making grades matter discussion 1. Is that what we're supposed to be doing? The second one?
Yeah.
Too? Okay.
I didn't really get much read, unfortunately.
From the book. I only got to the first 50 pages, but I really like it. I did find it a little repetitive. I feel like at the beginning from the first book, I feel like a lot of it was stuff like, okay, I already read this. I know this. But
also, I know Alyssa mentioned that she's using it more of like a file storage. That might be really nice for them to then have just all of their assessments live in Google Classroom. So they go one place to find their assessments. And that also might be a place then I have them reflect, periodically on how they're doing and what their grade would be. But that's still a theory at this point. I don't know. It was a day for Canvas. Today was hard. Nothing worked today. So, oh my gosh.
I feel ya. Yeah. So I know we're supposed to move on to the second part, and I'm so overwhelmed. I've read like the introduction and skimmed, but I'm not even at a point where I'm ready to talk academically.
Well, I haven't even read it. So you're a step ahead of me.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have no comments.
Hi. You're muted.
Did you get kicked out?
I did. So when I went to click join in my breakup group 3, it kicked me out. I clicked it several times and then I was kicked out.
Gotcha. It looks like it did that to you a couple times. I'll try one more time. We're going to take just a couple more minutes before I come back. I'll try it one more time for you. Let's see.
Now I know what this happened to a couple of my kids and I was kind of giving them a hard time about it. I was like, oh, you left because there was a breakout group.
Let me see.
So I don't know what that's about.
Where did it go? Okay, I'm having a hard time.
Okay. So I'm invited to group 4.
Okay, can you try to accept that? Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that was definitely going to happen. Hey, Josh.
Hey.
We invited you to pop in for questions. It's like a jury. We need some more info for deliberation. We were actually just wondering about if we were supposed to do the second question, and then you sent out the message that said do the second question.
All right, perfect.
Plus, we wanted to try out if you could ask a question. We wanted to try the breakout room practice process.
Now you got it. All right.
Did you get a notification that said we had a question?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
I like.
All right. We'll complete the next question then. Thank you.
All right, we'll just wait 30 more seconds or so. We'll get everybody else back here. Hopefully, I know it wasn't a ton of time, but hopefully get a chance to talk about both parts here at least a little bit. I like the people who, when you give the 1 minute to come back and then they take as much, all get those last few seconds out in their conversation. That's what I've been doing too when I'm in breakout groups. Okay, I think we have everybody back and some really interesting conversations. Since we're limited on time, I'm going to ask if each group could share out just one idea. I'll give you your choice. If you want to share out like one of the biggest ideas, one big idea either from last year's work or from the book, either or. Can we start with group one?
I'm so sorry, Josh. Can you say that one more time? What's the one thing you wanted us to share?
Yeah, no problem. So I'll give you your choice. So each group, if you share just one thing, because we only have time for that really, either from reflections on last year, which was the first thing I asked everybody to discuss, or something from the book.
I'll share something from the book. I'm not finished with it yet. I'm about halfway through, but I'm really enjoying this one. I didn't hate the one from last year, but I don't know that I enjoyed it, but that also feels like a lifetime ago that we read it. This one, I really appreciate that it's geared toward sixth grade and up. I feel like it really is answering a lot of need. And already right away in the first couple of chapters, I'm able to make notes about things that I can do tomorrow with my students and with my PLT. One of the things that resonated with me specifically was when you're talking with stakeholders to have a discussion about what the belief statements are about grades. I think that would be a really positive thing for me to do with my students. And I think that I'm going to do it on Friday and Monday. We're going to put together a little survey and then an option for them and for them to tell me what do they believe about grades, because I think that might help identify some obstacles or some areas of confusion that I still need to address with them.
Great, thanks. And group two?
We like how the book and, well, I guess the book addresses the idea that the PLC model aligns very nicely with the grading reforms. So lots of the information that came out of chapter one were things like standards-based learning is focusing on a skill essentially, and well, not essentially, it is, and the idea of allowing multiple opportunities to demonstrate learning. All of those kind of align with the PLC process, not counting homework as a grade, but as practice. And I like the way the book illustrates that the PLC process is a perfect place to kind of develop these grading reforms together and accomplish your PLC goals.
Great, thanks. Group three?
And so to piggyback off what you said, because we discussed the same thing, how the book was very attentive to the importance of, having a collaborative group work together in order to implement these. Yeah, that's definitely something that we discussed as well that we liked. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't do my reading. I'm the worst. I am that kid that has me so frustrated today because they showed up to the Zoom meeting unprepared because I thought we were meeting tomorrow. I read like about half of it. In our group, we also discussed how the book focused a little too heavily on homework. And, we kind of challenged that a little bit because we both agreed that, we kind of saw that more as an equity issue, and that if, yeah, it's good to have homework as a means for students to practice concepts and ideas, but there are some students with different home lives that won't allow for that practice to be meaningful. And if practice is going to be meaningful, it definitely needs to be done around a teacher that can help guide and support that student.
Right. Okay. Thank you for sharing. And later in the book, it will talk more about how homework is defined, I guess. Maybe that's a definition kind of a thing, and that we haven't gotten to yet. So don't worry, you didn't miss that part yet, Alyssa, even in that part. And anybody else, I just kind of overheard, and in the different groups. You're behind, no problem. Trying to make it manageable, like 20, 30 pages or so each time. But group 4?
We talked about everything that you guys just shared, but just adding to what Alyssa was sharing, we also talked about homework, and I shared how I don't like the word homework. I don't ever assign homework. But to think about it now with distance learning, technically all the independent practice that we're asking them to do technically is homework because we're not there. They're doing it on their own. So that's kind of how I'm digesting that part from the book. I don't see it as homework. I see it as the independent practice that they're doing and completing on their own. But we agree with everything that the book is saying so far. We also like that the 3 principles are just easier to digest and to understand, as opposed to like the grading for equity. It's more of like, this is a summary of everything that we've learned so far, and now we can just move forward.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for sharing, everybody. Yeah, I think, and I didn't get a chance to just say a little bit about this book first. Again, I planned to do that in the summer, and we had to change kind of how our meetings went. Obviously, this is a very different book from this one. This is a lot more grounded in theory, and there's a little bit less of the practicality in this book. This one is extremely practical, right? There's a little bit less of the theory in it. And again, they're both purposeful, and they just have different purposes. And so I think it helps in my mind to start with the theory, because I just think that's how practice should be, and then we get more practical. And so this obviously is talking about, it's specifically aligned to PLCs, and it's of course specific to standards-based grading too. And standards-based grading was just like one small piece of this, right? So there's overlap, but there's some differences too. And so that's one thing I would say. And I was curious about what your initial reactions were going to be. I wasn't sure. I thought that some people might be thinking like, yeah, I already know this. And I think that could be a part of it for sure. But I think they have a lot, even in the initial chapters, there's some little things here and there that can be helpful to kind of take, and to add and as into our developing and our experiences. We're continuing to develop our expertise. Let me just give you a quick example. Page 8, when they talk about the 3 different principles of standards-based grading, principle number 1, there's one word in particular that jumps out at me here. Grades should communicate students' current levels of learning based on standards, right? So like as current as possible, meaning not something that was from a month ago, if possible. And so replacing old scores, that's just a small thing, I think, just that as current as possible, giving them chances to do that. But I think there's a lot of good things here. There's some things that are repeated, of course, but I don't think there's a lot of stuff out there that's like just mind-blowing, that's completely new. It's about doing this stuff and refining it, making it better. So those are just a couple ideas, but I would love to take some more time in the future if we can really get down and talk about it in detail, and kind of maybe have some more intense dialogue on it, I'll say. But so one thing, we don't have a lot of time left here. I did want to talk about this last major part of an overview of our action research. So we're kind of modifying this piece this year, hopefully to make it a little bit more effective about kind of that data collection piece that we did at the end of the first semester, and then we didn't quite get to it in second semester because of how we finished the year. So here's what I'm asking everybody to do. I have attached here an action research template. And what I'm going to ask you to do, I'll open up in just a second, is to commit to at least one specific grading practice or policy to really focus on this year. So I encourage you to use a lot. In fact, I have on the bottom here a list of 20 recommended grading practices and policies. They come from both of these books. But I'm asking you to commit to one in particular that you're really going to focus on and gather evidence on that. Right? So if you do feel like you're kind of overwhelmed this year, as everybody kind of is, you maybe just want to go with one. If you want to do more than that, it's fine. But to gather evidence to measure the effectiveness, and all throughout the year. So we kind of did this last year, but it's just a little bit more specific on how we want to try to do it. And then to draw conclusions at the end of the year and to share your progress throughout. So let me just show you 2 documents to help out with that. So I'm going to show you to start. Okay, this is the template that I'm asking if you can, by our next meeting, hopefully, if you could get this filled out, that's in about a month. And the first few things are just about you, your information. Okay, so the grading practice that you're going to focus on, or if you want to do more than one. And I'd like you to try to develop a research question. So a research question that you can follow up on, that you can measure, that you can gather evidence to try to answer, right? So I encourage you, when you create your research question, think about what is the purpose of the practice in the first place. And a great place to go for that purpose is back to this book, that theory. Again, I'll show you an example in a second here. So create a research question and then brainstorm what data can you use to collect. If you remember in December when we were trying to do this, that's where we kind of got stuck. And I think that's because we did it after the fact. So if we do this before, I think it'll be a lot more effective. When does the data need to be collected? Again, just planning ahead. How will the data actually address your research questions? So like if you say, oh, I'm going to collect grades or final grades, how is that going to be used to answer your research questions? Any issues you think you might be facing, and then any specific support you might need. So here's an example. For some reason, as I was coming up, Saved by the Bell just came to mind. So I have a Saved by the Bell theme in here. Just FYI, I think they're supposed to have a remake of Saved by the Bell. Has anybody heard that? Kind of like the remake of Full House, doing a Saved by the Bell version of that. Anyway, so I have example here, grading practices of study. Some research questions. So here are a couple of research question examples. How does a policy that designates homework as non-graded practice impact students' homework completion? And as you can imagine, homework completion is something that's pretty easy to measure. Right? Second research question to get to the elimination of zeros. How can eliminating zeros affect students' intrinsic motivation? Now that one's harder to measure, of course, and so when I get to the data to collect, example for the first one, homework completion rates, comparing different classes. I won't go into all the details right now just because of time, but check that out, please, when you get a chance. For the second one about elimination of zeros, a pre and a post survey could be used. Also reflections. Remember, reflections are good ways to collect data, whether it's teacher reflections, student reflections. Example of when data could be collected, how it would be used, and then some possible issues. Okay, so it'll take a little bit of time, but I would like to help as much as I can if you have any questions about it. So, and again, I think this will help us to better kind of share each time that we have a session, and then also make conclusions at the end. So is there any questions about this? I've had to go through this pretty quickly here, and we're just about at the end of our time. Anything that is unclear?
Well, I just have a quick question. You said, is the list of all the 20 or whatever you said grading policies, is that on that link or something?
Yeah, it's right here. And it's not an all-inclusive list, but
okay.
These are the big ones really that we went over. And they're mostly in the book. Oh, actually, I have it open in a window already. So this is what it looks like. It's in our folder, and it's just a list of them, right? And so I would go to Grading for Equity would be the best place. I want to put in some more sources too that are sources beyond what we've gone over together, because obviously there are a lot of other good sources out there too. These are just the ones that we focused on. So these are the 20. And so yeah, check out some things that are in this shared folder, or the shared drive rather. It's called the Grading Reform Work again. And I'm trying to reorganize just a little bit better because it's still a little cluttery, but hopefully you can navigate through there a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty. If you could have that by our next meeting, that would be great. If that's too short of a time, let me know. And so that's a little bit about the overview. Next steps, though. So like I said, if you could have that plan by next time, that would be great. Like within a month or so. Right now, tentatively, we're thinking October 21st. That's a month from today, 1:30 to 3:30. If you have any feedback about like the time or anything like that, how often we're meeting, if you could email me, would probably be the best way, I guess. So that would be appreciated. And then one other thing I want to mention too is I would really like, if it would be helpful for you, to schedule some check-ins. So just like it could be a short check-in, 15 minutes or something like that, between our meetings. So this would be, it would be either one-on-one or me with your team, or Mindy and I with your team. And just to kind of see like, hey, how's it going with grading? What questions do you have right now? Can I help with the plan? Stuff like that. And we could just talk a little bit about grading and kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So I don't have anything set right now as far as scheduling, but I will be sharing something. I'm going to be sharing, Mindy, what am I going to be sharing? What's it called again? That app.
Sharing? Your
What's the app
feelings? I don't know, Josh.
over the summer? What's it over the summer?
Over the summer.
It rhymes with Zoom, I think, or Google or something. It has a couple O's in it. There's an app about scheduling.
Oh, scheduling.
Oh, Doodle. It's a Doodle poll.
It rhymed with Google. Okay, so I'll share that out again, just to try to have some more, whether it's support or just sharing ideas out along the way. And there's a lot of big workload for everybody, of course. Okay, so that's just another piece we're hoping that will help along the way and in between meetings too. All right, I don't want to take too much of your time because we're already over time right now. So I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate that. And let me know other things that would be helpful. We do have some other things that have been shared. So for example, real quick, as we're just wrapping up, Katie's husband made some, Adam made some videos about using Canvas and Synergy for those gradebook questions. And I know, lots of time people have those questions. He made like 4 or 5 videos. This was almost a month. It was about a month ago now. I shared it in email, but I'm going to put it inside of the shared drive too. And if you have any other things that could be shared resources, please put them in there, and we'll maybe find the best place so people can find them easily. But that would be great for kind of our community of support. So like I said, thanks again for coming. If you want to stick around for a minute, definitely feel free. But you got to go somewhere. Appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward this year, as we're continuing our work, because it's tough as we already feel. But kids' grades and communicating that are just as important now, maybe more. And we didn't get a chance to grade in fourth quarter when we had distance learning last week, or last year rather.
Science? Okay, give me 1 second.
All right, guys, so stick around if you want to talk about anything else. But besides that, have a good day. I'll see you guys next month or so.